It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
Guten Tag.
Bienvenue.
I feel like I need to find some other cultures to offend. Willkommen, bienvenue.
Welcome. Enchanté. It's a fine Saturday matinee to you, Andy. This is Endgame weekend. How many times have you seen it so far?
I've seen it twice.
It's a one-a-day weekend for Andy. Is that right?
It's not quite. It will be 3 times over the weekend.
My second one is coming up tomorrow. We are, of course, talking about it on the film board tonight, which will be out for everybody next week, and for patrons as soon as we do it. And you can always come listen along if you'd like in the Discord chat room. We don't talk about that a lot, but you can jump in the live show if you want.
Mm-hmm. Can they?
Yeah.
Sure.
If they want. If they want, it'll be a treat. It'll be a real treat.
They can tune in. So just to following up on that, just Endgame info. So right now, the estimates for Friday night stand at 157.5 million, with a record 60 million of preview screenings. That's 38.4 million more than Star Wars: The Force Awakens. The Fork Awakens,
which was huge open. Yeah,
that they need to do Mystery Men. The Fork Awakens. But Star Wars: The Force Awakens opening and single day record was 119.1 million. And so that's topping that. And as for the whole weekend, right now, they're estimating between 349 and 356 million for this film. It is the widest theatrical release ever, 4,662 screens. And it's it's crazy because just this weekend, they are making what a lot of films hope they make in their whole theatrical run, or it's
maybe
nuts.
Their whole theatrical and rental and global pop culture run, and maybe even including the jokes on SNL later. I mean, I don't know. In a day,
it's the whole weekend. It's insane how much money this film is making. I mean, and I'm sure I'll talk about this tonight, but I went and saw opening night Thursday at the preview screenings, and I just walked around the theater that night after the movie was over. It was a 16-plex, and they had it playing on 14 screens. Last night, opening night, I went to a different 16-plex, and they had it playing on 10 of the 16 screens. It's crazy. This thing is just going to be owning screens around the country because of the number of people who want to see it. And I still see people on Facebook going, well, I went to the theater. I went online to see if I could get tickets today. And wow, it's all sold out.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Not to be, of course, a lot of people want to see it, but also this 3-hour runtime makes it really complicated for theater owners to figure out how to show it enough times without booting other movies, right? It's just scheduling this thing is challenging. So, I get it. I get why it's complicated. And sorry, Shazam. You know what I mean? Shazam, which was a legit fun movie, is being booted from screens very early. I mean, all the movies that are being upset by, having to take 10 of the 16 screens in your example is, this is going to be tough for the broader film economy.
Well, and that's, I'm really curious about, because I mean, obviously the exhibitors get some of the money. Right. It's not like Disney's walking away with all of this cash. Right. I mean, the exhibitors are getting money. All the people who make the concessions are getting tons of money. IMAX gets a ton of money. Dolby, all of these people are getting funding from this. And so obviously they want it to succeed. But I feel like the exhibitors have to have there have to be deals in place with the studios where if a movie is making a certain amount of money still, it still should be on screens. I don't know how that works. Do they have to forfeit something when they pull Shazam to add more Endgame screenings?
Yeah, and does Shazam come back when Endgame starts to pull screenings?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm really curious how, and it could just be after this weekend. Like it could be Sunday, and then all of a sudden Monday, everything is kind of back until next weekend. And I don't know. I'm really curious about the shift of all this. I mean, having worked at a movie theater back when I was in college, I know that there is a lot of give and take when it comes to all of this sort of stuff as they're working with the different studios and the different the ways that certain films are going to get more play, and they have to be in these sizes of screens and all this sort of stuff. So I know there's a lot of play, but man, something like this, when it hits and it's on so many screens, like I'm really curious the deals that are in place to keep all these other studios happy.
This on the heels of, did you read this Variety article that says U.S. movie ticket sales box office plunge in first quarter, saying U.S. movie admissions slid 14.9% in the first quarter to 265.6 million, and box office receipts plunged 16.3% to 2.39 billion on the heels of a record-setting year, the National Association of Theater Owners reports. Maybe that means Endgame is a boon to this slip. I certainly haven't seen it. And I know, I'm challenged because the theaters that I visit are frequent. My favorite theaters have both been completely renovated, and if they have 2/3 the seats they originally had now, I'd be really surprised. They all have the big motorized recliners, and I think they've taken out, 2/3 or a full third of the rows in all of the theaters in the megaplex. So they're just not selling as many tickets because there just aren't as many seats. But they're all sold out. I feel like I'm going to more sold out movies. But the ticket prices are more expensive, so I feel like there's I don't know. I mean, I guess you're right. Like, I wonder, when they had the old style at a lower price, now that it's a higher price with these fancier seats, are they breaking even? I'm not quite sure. Because I don't feel like, I don't know. I guess I'm curious where that lands. The average 2018 ticket price increased 1.6%, to your point, from $8.97 to $9.11. North American moviegoing audience, the biggest demographic jump in the North American moviegoing audience during 2018 took place in the 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 groups, which accounted for more than half of total moviegoing revenues in the first quarter. The biggest drop took place with the 55 and up group, sliding to 5% from over 6%. So older folks are not going to movies as much. Yeah, right. It's interesting because with a film like Endgame, when so many people are seeing it, it obviously means they're not seeing other films. And so it's not like, so you're going to see, like, when you look at the stats, like the box office drops in films as far as popularity on any given weekend, everything is going to have a big drop because all of a sudden no one is going to see Endgame, no one is going to go see them because they're all seeing Endgame. And also, no one can see them because Endgame's on so many screens. So it's almost like a weirdly artificial drop that's getting forced across everything. Right. The whole thing is so interesting to me. Like, this would be something I'd love to be in on some, kind of conversations in the exhibitor world and see how all of this, what it means as far as all these statistics. I'll have to keep track on ComScore, see if they post anything interesting. So just in terms of a hot take, how often did you cry the second time you saw the movie? A lot. Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. I know we're going to have our other show about it, but I have to tell you, the way the movie, and we'll talk in great detail about this because it's important to me, but the way the movie plays with sound and silence is made for a hysterical viewing when you hear pockets of 40-something nerds just that kind of sound, like just kind of popping up from different parts of the theater. And now there's one over on the left. And then I realized all of that was me.
It was me and Dolby
Yeah,
Atmos. Oh, so funny.
Well,
so
here's
funny.
something not Marvel related, not Endgame related. Did you see this about old Peter Farrelly? He's got a
What's the news?
got a new movie. He's ready. He's got his next movie after Greenbook. I know you're going to be excited about that.
Greenbook 2.
Well, this one is he's doing this one for Skydance, and it's based on a book that I have never read. The book by Joanna Malloy and John Chicky Donahue is called "The Greatest Beer Run Ever: A True Story of Friendship Stronger Than War." And the story is about Chicky Donahue, who left New York in '67 to track down and share a few beers with childhood buddies in the Army while they were fighting in Vietnam. And, I got to tell you, this one, it seems more attuned to Peter Farrelly's sensibilities than Greenbook. So, honestly, I'm going into this one thinking, he might be able to turn this one around.
Yeah, maybe. What I know. I mean, he might. Yeah, it might be fine. It might be fine. It's something that just struck me as you were reading that is it odd to you? Do you find it odd that it's no longer like Farrelly brothers?
Yes, I do find that odd.
What happened there? Have you heard anything about that? Like, why is it all of a sudden now he's on his own?
Yeah, I have no idea. No idea.
That's weird.
Where are the Farrelly brothers? Nope, Google doesn't know.
Because I don't think even Bobby was involved in Greenbook, was he?
Wow. Yeah, no, he was not, as far as I know. There was no credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing on Wikipedia.
The last time they worked together was on Dumb and Dumber 2 in 2014. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Wow.
Even a movie that is so attuned to both of their sensibilities, like movie 43, they were not on together. It was just Peter.
Yeah, but that was the only other time.
Yeah.
Huh.
Very interesting.
I'm curious now. Now that I don't know, your story made me kind of go down that totally different rabbit hole, but it all of a sudden piques my curiosity. Like, what's happened to Bobby?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. So I do think that's interesting that he is continuing down this road, and maybe that's part of the reason is that his own sensibilities are changing, and more power to him. I didn't like Greenbook. I found it, well, the Greenbook story, but I'm certainly open to more of what he does, and I've liked a lot of the movies that he's been involved with in the past. And so if he can find a way to meld his sensibilities with a story that's right for it, I'm there. I'm showing up. So
yeah, I feel like so much of their comedy had always been hit or miss with me. They always had such a low common denominator for some of it that I really struggled. Yeah. So I think every now and then they would do some interesting stuff, but I don't know. I'm curious to see. If they are able to kind of get out and do some things different. So I guess we'll see. Should we do trailers?
Well, we should. Do we have any
Or did you have more news?
No, I don't. I mean, always. There's always more news, Andy. But does there exist any Marvel news that isn't Endgame related? And the only reason I'm asking is because now that I've seen the movie, I'm eager for Kevin Feige to come out and tell us what's next, because I know there's a what's next.
Well, I did see Benedict Cumberbatch post something, kind of the rumor mill is starting that Doctor Strange 2 is next year.
All right. That's good.
So I guess that's some news.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And I guess also, I'm sure you were getting plugged up the wazoo like I was before your screening, but Dark Phoenix is coming soon, and I'm very curious, very excited about that.
Are you really?
one.
Are you excited more than curious, or curious more than excited?
Curious more than excited. The X-Men films have never completely wowed me. I think that they've done some interesting stuff in them. And I think that the Dark Phoenix story is a pretty interesting one. And I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of curious to see what they do with it here. I think that it looks good. Like the casting looks great and everything. So I'm hoping that they do some interesting stuff with it.
Me too. Since this is the last of this particular cast in the X-Men universe, I hope they're able to go out with a bang, so to speak. But the latest trailer, I like that they, at least I feel like they're a little bit more authentic with what the story is and the amount of origin story we get. And the X-Men are doing space rescues now. Okay, that's cool. Like I thought that was a great little line. And so we'll see. I've heard in this case. Spoiler culture, I think, has gotten the best of me, even though I have no idea really what the architecture of the story is. I'm so spoiled on the state of preview screenings for that movie that I'm going in with a natural sense of skepticism that is likely unfair, but we'll see. I like the cast. I like what they're up to. I like, it's always this generation of X-Men movies, like you say, I find that they're entertaining in isolation, but as soon as you take a step back, as a whole, they feel kind of incomplete as an X-Men universe, and I feel like I never quite understand what they're going for there. So it's probably good time for a reset.
Well, yeah, and I think this is an example of why, like, one core person like Kevin Feige at the foundation who can tie everything together and kind of keep that thread running, even as different other people come in and out. I think that really can help.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should jump into trailers.
Excellent. I don't think either of us have Red Band or A24, so you posted first. Why don't you go first?
Oh, dear. Well, okay. You sound
so enthusiastic.
I am, and I've seen this trailer a number of times, and I've seen it on the big screen, and I'm going into this again with a natural sense of skepticism. Because it is the story of Will Smith versus a digitally youngified Will Smith. It is Gemini Man from director Ang Lee and writers Billy Ray and Darren Lemke. Andy, what do you say about Ang Lee being back into it? It's a movie. It's an action movie. He's done it again, right? Like you can say it with no enthusiasm whatsoever, and it will be true. He has done it again. Will this be Brokeback or Life of Pi? Right? Will this be Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon? I don't know. But Will Smith certainly looks weird. One of the Will Smiths certainly looks super weird when he speaks. He looks like, what's his name? Superman after the mustache removal. It's not right. It's going to take me out of the film. I don't know why they went down that road. It's a story of an over-the-hill hitman as he faces off against a younger clone of himself. So you can pretty much see where the story's going. But what excites me about it, frankly, is the stunt work. Like there are some really cool effect shots that come out in the trailer. And if these effect shots are a fraction of what they actually do in the movie, things they do with motorcycles, I'm in it. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So, in the same way that I was into Mission Impossible 2 with the dubs and the motorcycle stuff, I could very well get into this movie, and it could be a great little popcorn thing. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, obviously Will Smith, Clive Owen, Benedict Wong is in it, which is great. Wanted to make sure that there was a tie into Endgame. So I think there's hope. It could be a lot of fun. I'm trying to severely measure my expectations on this movie. What do you think?
It's amazing how long this project has been around. I mean, this was a project that was from 97. Yeah. It started as a project. Tony Scott, Curtis Hanson, Joe Carnahan, they'd all been attached at some point in time. Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Clint Eastwood, Sean Connery had all been set to star at various points in time. For whatever reason, this project just kind of keeps going through this crazy development hell. And I feel like it sounds like a really interesting story. And I don't know if the reason it was going through development hell was just technology. Like they couldn't quite find a way to make it work with kind of that whole clone side of things. And so I think that they were probably trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to shoot it? Is it going to be Freaky Friday style of shooting? Right. Pulling back to like the way back machine. So, I don't know. I get really nervous with projects like this that finally find a way to get made after having gone through decades of development hell. And I'm thrilled that Ang Lee is doing it. Will Smith, I'm constantly hoping he'll find his footing in something, because I feel like he's lost it at some point and can't get, just can't find the right project anymore.
Well, that's why I'm so glad he got Aladdin, because that seems to be a lock.
Yes, there it is. That's the one. So I don't know. But, watching this trailer, while I'm interested in the story, like you, I find that youngified Will Smith just, like, it's the first time I saw him, I was like, did they just do a CG Will Smith?
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized, they're just youngifying him, and it just doesn't work right. Like, it's off. And I don't know if Ang Lee is using the people who did his Hulk to do this Will Smith. I don't know, but it's rough. And so I'm curious about this one more than anything. I can't say I am excited. And I hate to say it, but just from watching the trailer, I'm like, all right, don't think this is the Will Smith vehicle that he was looking for.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes me nervous. David Benioff has a story credit on this, and I'm a big fan of David Benioff and Game of Thrones, but there are a lot of people with story credit, written by credit, writer credit, however weird that is, and so most of the credit looks like top billing for writing goes to Billy Ray, and the thing I have with Billy Ray is that unfortunately he also has done movies that I really like, so I want to that makes me more enthusiastic. I was such a huge fan of Shattered Glass back in the day. Hunger Games, Hunger Games it's held up for me. I've enjoyed that. Captain Phillips, and then I haven't seen Overlord, but those are his IMDb top 4, and they're all they all seem like a lock to me, with the exception of Overlord. Did you ever see that one?
Which
Overlord.
One?
Came out last year. It was it's the one where it came out last year. Nazis.
Totally.
The small group of American soldiers find horror behind enemy lines on the eve of D-Day. Right? It's a 6.7 on the IMDb scale, Andy. So sounds like something might be right up your alley.
Anyway. Maybe late night watch.
Right. So that's my trailer, Gemini Man. And when does it come out? That's a great question. I'll tell you, because it's October 4th, 2019. So
there it is. Yep.
What's yours?
Well, I am continuing the Endgame connections. I'm looking at Chadwick Boseman starring vehicle produced by Anthony and Joe Russo. I think 21 Bridges looks like it could be an interesting cop thriller. I don't know if I'm completely sold. It looks like it might just be straight up by the books action thriller. Brian Kirk is directing it. Brian Kirk has been largely a TV director on things like Game of Thrones, Boardwalk Empire, Luther, Dexter, Brotherhood, The Tudors, The Riches, all sorts of stuff. Just quite a wide array of TV projects. I don't think that he has done any films yet. I'm kind of scrolling through, but I do think it looks like the film is handled well. Watching the trailer, I'm like, okay, everything about it looks like it could work, right? It has kind of the tone, the feel, and everything. The thing that I'm most curious about is just kind of the story. And I don't know, watching this, I couldn't help but feel like this could work. It could be a really interesting cop thriller. It might also just be one of those by the books cop thrillers that you watch and then you leave the theater and then it's instantly gone from your mind.
Yeah.
That makes me a little sad because I'd love to see Chadwick Boseman doing something that was really memorable. And I don't know if this is it. I'm not 100% convinced. It's hard to tell from the writing team. Adam Mervis came up with the story and then co-wrote the script with, well, I don't know. It's weird. It's written by Matthew Michael Carnahan, screenplay by Adam Mervis. So I don't really know how to define who has what role. But yeah, I just don't know. Matthew Michael Carnahan has, I think written some projects that are, they're interesting but not great. The Kingdom, Lions for Lambs, which was a bore. State of Play, which was a bore. World War Z, which I enjoyed. Deepwater Horizon was pretty straightforward biopic. And then this, and then working with Todd Haynes of all people. So that's kind of an odd switch. So I don't know. What did you think of this one?
The name that came out, obviously I'm into the Chadwick Boseman connection. Wakanda forever, right? Whatever. The name that stuck out to me more than anything else is Tyler Kitsch, who is an actor that I've been a fan of, straight up fan of since Friday Night Lights. Tim Riggins.
I thought you were going to say since Battleship.
That's the problem, Andy. That's the problem. Battleship, X-Men Origins, Wolverine, John Carter, which I am an island that I enjoyed that movie and wish that it had done better.
There are islands of people like you who do appreciate that film.
Maybe less of an island and more adrift. But properties I haven't seen, like Waco. He played David Koresh in this miniseries Waco, which has come to some acclaim, his portrayal there. So I'm really interested in this. Is this going to be something shooting for a movie like Heat, which has that relationship, that sort of good cop, or anti-hero cop and good guy criminal Robin Hood story. Yeah. Like what is the story that we're getting at here, and do these characters have something more than just what is portrayed in the trailer to actually show us and demonstrate? I like all the people involved. The trailer I felt like was a bit incoherent in what it was trying to sell me. It doesn't even say, like IMDb says, a disgraced detective. Yeah. I'm like, was he disgraced? I didn't get that at all.
I didn't get that. Yeah. So
it worries me just a little bit because it was not a great trailer, but it has a lot of. I think it's got all the right people to be a film of some promise, and it's coming out at a big time of year. Somebody's excited about it. I'm curious to see if it's going to end up pulling through. I guess we'll have to wait and see. It is scheduled to release here in the U.S. July 12th, and Netherlands same time, Portugal, France all in July, UK August 23rd. Yeah. All right.
Anyway, that's trailer.
Your trailer. Let's do the lists.
This week we talked about Russian Dolls, the second of Cedric Klapich's Spanish Apartment trilogy, and not having seen it before we threw the options together, Steve and I frantically tried to come up with some things, and we ended up with options that might have been a little standard. Reconnecting with old friends, films set in Russia, and dream jobs are hard work. Everybody loves Russia. When we had Cold War films, everybody loved those, and now we're back in Russia. Films set in Russia. That's the pick by a mile. So here we are. Films set in Russia. Now, I have a question for you. Did you do films completely set in Russia, or did you do films, if they have a scene in Russia, that's okay?
Scene in Russia. Just a scene in Russia that if they went to Russia, if they were in Russia, if something happened in Russia, it was a candidate for my list. I imagine that you were probably more of a purist than that.
I wrote a list that included both. That's why I asked, because I'm like, which way should I go? Because I hadn't quite decided. I don't know. I guess I'm going to wing it and see what happens as we go.
Okay. Excellent. That always works out in our favor. Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Do I get to go first? Is that how we do this?
Yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead. Kick it off.
The first movie on my list is a movie that it's one of those movies where all of the pieces seem like they should fit together, and then ultimately for me they don't. But I do enjoy revisiting this film because of some of the pieces. The hardest thing to watch for me are the principal performances, which is so weird that it even makes it onto my list. But it is weirdly the first movie that came to mind when I found this movie set in Russia was going to be the thing that we talk about. It is Brad Anderson's 2008 thriller Trans-Siberian, in which an American couple journey from China to Russia on a train, and they meet up with fellow travelers and Ben Kingsley. So the principal performers here are Woody Harrelson and Emily Mortimer. And Woody Harrelson, I think this might be back before he realized I just need to do stuff that is me and not try to actually be a character, because he plays the most namby-pamby American, like generic American that you've ever seen in this movie. And it's hard to stomach. Almost as hard to stomach as, strangely, Ben Kingsley's Russian accent, which is terrible. Like, he is just not threatening because his accent is so bad. He plays a Russian drug cop. But the setting and how they handle the stuff in and around the train and the winter and all of the Russia stuff, I actually think is really good. And I think it's super entertaining and in that regard. And Brad Anderson, I think, has a strong filmmaking sensibility. I enjoyed The Machinist very much, which he had done prior to this. And it was certainly worth seeing. And I think he has some of the same sort of the same sort of visual sensibilities that he displayed in terms of just how do we handle bleakness in story. So that's my first pick, Trans-Siberian 2008. There's a lot to pick apart if you want to pick it apart, but goodness, does it handle the Russia stuff well?
I thought that was a pretty interesting film. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I totally agree with everything that you said. It's like, but I found it to be like, it kind of was like an interesting surprise. It was a very small film that I think I just, caught it on Netflix or something. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was kind of a neat little film. It worked as its own little thriller. It had some odd performances, but I still enjoyed it. I walked away going, okay, that was kind of cool.
Kind of cool. And I'm just going to say again, not that I'm insinuating a theme in my picks at all besides Russia, but Ben Kingsley, Iron Man 3. There you go. You may go.
I almost guarantee that I will not be able to find any MCU connection with my first choice here. I went through a phase when I don't know, probably the late 90s, early 2000s, where I kind of started watching Akira Kurosawa's films and fell in love with him as a director and what he did in his storytelling. And I was just kind of watching every single thing of his. I just kind of went through his chronology and whatever I could find, I watched. I came on to his a really odd little film he did in 1975 called Dersu Uzala, which is about this. It's kind of about this Russian. It's based on a memoir about an explorer and his team crossing. I feel like it's crossing Siberia, kind of like through this just crazy wilderness, and they come across this place and they find this nomadic hunter whose name is Dersu Uzala, who says he'll guide them across it. And it basically becomes kind of this journey film as they journey across the just kind of the freezing Russian tundra with this guide who, very much just kind of knows how to navigate it and saves their lives. And, they kind of learn from him and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I found it to be a really captivating movie. And much like I find most things that Kurosawa does, just really interesting and definitely one worth checking out. It's not something that stands out as one that people immediately call to mind when they think of Kurosawa's films, because it doesn't have anything really taking place in Japan. Oh, excuse me. But it's one that that came to him. Really, I mean, this terrible period in his life, he'd tried killing himself because he ran out of, or because his previous film failed. He couldn't get funding for his other films, and was just in this place where things were falling apart for him. And it really kind of became this moment for him to do something. And it really, I think, kind of helped to get him out of it. So, have you seen it?
Spell it.
Dersu, Dersu, Uzala, Uzala.
Okay, so I guess that should answer your question. I can't even spell it. No, I've never seen it, but I'm fascinated by it. And I'm absolutely adding it to the list right now.
Yeah, it's a really interesting film that I mean, just reading about it again, I'm like, gosh, I really want to watch that again, because I just found it to be kind of this, just kind of a really interesting tale of kind of journeying through the Russian wilderness with this person. So check it out.
Letterboxd, watch list, check, done. I'm trying to follow your lead, man. You and Steve, you're keeping up on your watch lists, and that's where I fall apart. All right. Let me begin by saying, for pick number 2, I adore The Name of the Rose. The Name of the Rose is naturally not my pick of this week, but it is a film by...
I was like, that's not in Russia.
It is a film by Jean-Jacques Annaud. It is fantastic. And so when I saw that movie, that was in 1986, I fell in absolute love with that film. And I thought, oh, Jean-Jacques Annaud is going to be a director that I see everything he does. And then I proceeded not to do that. I missed the next bunch of films that he did until 1997. I saw 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, and I did not like it at all when I saw it. I've liked it more since then. I've watched it I think 1 or 2 times since I first saw it in the theater. I went back to the theater to see his immediate follow-up, which is Enemy at the Gates. It is the story of the Battle of Stalingrad, and it puts Jude Law standing off against Ed Harris. Now, I'll just say this. I enjoyed this movie, and it makes my skin crawl a little bit because it's a bunch of British people, like, not even acknowledging that there's Russian and German stuff going on here. They just put on the fancy clothes and parade around and do a melodrama. And it's kind of hard to watch for me, because I don't think that perspective ages well. I think if they were to make this movie again, it would be full of a much more sort of vibrant international cast that better represents, essentially this sort of true story of the Battle of Stalingrad and these fictionalized characters inside of it. But the climax of this movie, when we actually have this standoff mano a mano between Jude Law and Ed Harris, is worth seeing, absolutely, especially if you just want to see more of Ed Harris getting shot in the head. I think it is one of the most beautiful and just sort of exhilarating standoffs in this kind of a gritty war movie. Rachel Weisz is in it, and she's delightful as always. Joseph Fiennes is in it. Bob Hoskins, he plays Nikita Khrushchev, and it's kind of hard to watch because he's Bob Hoskins. And so, but Ron Perlman's in it. It's got a fantastic cast. It really does. They made some choices about kind of how to portray the story in Stalingrad in a way that over the last 18 years has become a little bit comical, unintentionally comical. But there you go. Enemy at the Gates, 2001. What'd you think?
It was an interesting watch. I remember it had some stuff that I did enjoy. I love the cat and mouse game of the two snipers.
Yeah, that's why you show up.
I thought that was kind of, yeah, exactly. That's why you watch that movie, because it was an interesting exploration of that world of warfare. You know, this game that these snipers play. To that end, it wasn't a great film, but it did have its moments.
Yeah.
That's kind of my recollection of it.
And not at all to insinuate that there may be a sub-theme to my picks. Jude Law, Captain Marvel.
Well, I am happy to say that my next one does have the MCU connection.
Excellent.
It is a this was a film that I had kind of forgotten about until, you know, as I had said, I'm listening to this podcast, 80s All Over, where they're going back through every single film of the 80s that was theatrically released and re-reviewing them. And I'm having just a delightful time listening to the shows. I had kind of forgotten about this film. This is a 1983 film called Gorky Park, directed by Michael Apted with William Hurt. There's our connection. Lee Marvin, Brian Dennehy, and it's a really nice score by James Horner. It's a film about a Soviet detective who is investigating a mystery of these three bodies that are found. They had all been shot in the chest and mouth, and their faces and their fingertips had been removed. And so he has to start this investigation. And, you know, my recollection of it is a little weak because it has been quite a while. This other podcast reminded me about it. I'm like, gosh, I really would love to revisit that film, because I did find it really interesting, because it goes in directions that you just don't expect. And I thought it was a pretty interesting film at the time, the way that it kind of explored what was going on in Russia. Obviously, it wasn't shot in Russia in 1983, but with an interesting cast and kind of the way that it involves the KGB, and it ends up involving sable fur and all sorts of stuff. It was just a really interesting film that I'm really curious about. So that's my second pick, Gorky Park.
I'm with you. I need to see this again. You get a cast like William Hurt and Lee Marvin and Brian Dennehy and Richard Griffiths and Ian McDiarmid. I mean, it is an amazing cast of people in this movie, and it has been, 20 years. But you're absolutely right. I need to see this again. And have you ever read the book?
I haven't. No. Martin Cruz Smith wrote the book, but
it's one of my dad's, I think, favorites. I think this is one of my dad's bedside table books. It was there for 20 years because he just couldn't get around to reading it, and then he devoured it in like 2 days. So right. Good pick. My third pick. So it was set. It takes the story to St. Petersburg. It was not shot in Russia. It was shot all over the Czech Republic and Romania and places that Serbia, Bosnia. It looks like it looks like Russia. Also, they shoot a lot of stuff that's supposed to take place in New Jersey, but that was actually shot in Romania. So what are you going to do? It is the 2008 film, The Brothers Bloom. I love this movie. Again, I feel a little bit like I'm adrift when I say that, because people that I think should love this movie with me don't love this movie with me. I'm going to keep talking to not give you a chance to speak. It is one of my favorite Rian Johnson films. It stars Adrian Brody and Rachel Weisz, again, Enemy at the Gates. And again, not to insinuate that there may be a sub-theme to my picks, Mark Ruffalo, all of the MCU. That's the Hulk. There you go. I love this movie. It's a con that takes us all over the world, swindling millionaires, and they're taking on one last job. These two brothers Bloom, and they're taking on the beautiful and eccentric heiress with them. And this is an adventure story. All right, go ahead. What do you think?
I don't really have anything to say about it. I didn't like it. I just didn't care for it. I know Rian Johnson is very much kind of that hit or miss director, whether it's a small film like this or a big film like Last Jedi. I think that is almost true with every film of his, I think. So that to me, I think I find more interesting than this
So
film.
here's the thing. He is very much more of a hit than a miss for me. I adored Brick. I adored The Brothers Bloom. And I adored The Last Jedi. And so of the 4 big movies, the only one that I find myself a little bit on a miss of is Looper. I actually weirdly struggled with that one. And I think that was one that you liked a lot, right?
Well, I think you liked it a lot too when we did our show about
I complained an awful lot about the aging stuff, about the faces, and that took me out of it for some reason. So I think I need to watch it again because my memory of it has gotten worse the more I think about it. He's also a big fan of the Mountain Goats, which I'm also a fan of the Mountain Goats, the band, and he's done a number of shorts and videos for them. So that endears me to him even more. So what are you going to do? And I'm excited for his untitled Star Wars trilogy. So, all right.
We'll see if that ever gets off the ground.
Oh, it's coming, Andy. You killjoy.
That's right. That's
all
me.
Right, what's your last one?
For my final pick, I'm going with an Oscar, a big Oscar film. It didn't win Best Picture, but certainly was nominated for Best Picture. I only saw it recently because I've been kind of playing catch up on all my Oscar nominees. It is Warren Beatty's 1981 film Reds. This was a harder film to watch for me than I expected. I didn't love it. I thought it was really interesting, but it has elements that have stuck with me. The film really follows kind of John Reed, the writer of, he went over and chronicled the Russian Revolution in the book 10 Days That Shook the World. But it's got a massive cast, and it takes place during a really interesting period of time when all of these writers and journalists and activists were really kind of coming into their own. And you got people like Diane Keaton as Louise Bryant, Edward Herrmann as Max Eastman, Jack Nicholson as Eugene O'Neill. It's got a really interesting cast of people playing really interesting people in a really interesting period of time, as they're going back and forth from the U.S. to Russia to kind of just explore. And I feel like the bulk of it actually doesn't take place in Russia, but it's very much about kind of what's going on there and how it leads these people to kind of, find this connection to this spirit of communism and everything. So it's maybe a slight cheat because I don't feel like there's much at all that actually take place over there, but it's a really interesting film that deals with it very heavily. And I think the thing that makes this film memorable for me is the fact that aside from the story you have with this wonderful cast, you have a lot of real people who were actually involved. All these, they call them kind of witness interviews, all these actual radicals and activists and authors and advocates and everybody kind of as a part of this story, like interviews with these real people kind of telling the story and kind of setting the stage for everything that was going on. That for me is what really made this film interesting and memorable. It's just seeing these real people who were there and affected by it as the rest of this story unfolds. So it wasn't my favorite film, but it's one that stuck with me. It is Reds.
Yeah, I have nothing to add that you haven't said about that. I mean, you're absolutely right. In particular, Jack Nicholson as Eugene O'Neill is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's one of those like standout performances of playing a real guy as kind of an ancillary character to the central protagonist that I think is it's worth watching. So it's great. It's great stuff. But like you said, it's not my favorite. It really was. It's Warren Beatty as an activist filmmaker, and so you like that, you don't like whatever, but.
But I think, it gives such a good sense of that period of time. I felt like you really felt what it was like in the United States, in the world, or like right in this time in kind of the 19 teens, when you could really kind of, there was this change in, revolution and the way that people were kind of finding this new voice in communism before it became this, outcry to kind of quash it here in the States and led to such awful times.
Right. Yeah. Good set. And that brings us to this coming week. It's the final of our trilogy of Cedric Clappich's Spanish Apartment. And I'm sorry,
It
Andy,
is.
I haven't watched it yet.
Well, we've got options. We can do Divorce. I think Divorce films is a fair path to take. We could do we could do Chinatown. Films that deal with Chinatown. I feel like that list would be awfully small.
Okay.
We could do Marriage by Convenience. That's certainly an angle we could go.
Oh, okay.
We could do
also a kind of a short list in my head right now, but maybe it's longer if we start evaluating it.
Yeah, I feel like that might be a tricky one, but we could certainly do that. We could do there's I mean, for my money, you just nailed 3 that I think we could go with, and this is based on me watching just the trailer for the movie. Right. We could certainly also go with again, I feel like some of these lists would be really small, but having a baby or I don't even know how you would define it, but how would you do it? Like helping friends have a baby.
Oh, surrogacy?
Surrogacy, there you go.
Okay.
Is that like way too narrow?
I don't think so.
I can think of 2. Unless we go with the Bruce Willis film, Surrogates.
I'll bet we can come up with some others. I think we can. It'll be a challenge. Ugh.
Well, we've got surrogacy, divorce films, Marriage by Convenience, Chinatown. What do we want to do? Do we like one of those less than the others? Do we want to find something else?
If we're gonna,
we could also do Rekindling Old Flames.
Okay. Having not seen the movie yet, I feel like this whole conversation is painting maybe a weird picture of what I have in for me.
Right.
I like that. Rekindling Old Flames. That's always fun.
Okay.
I like that better than Surrogacy for sure.
Oh, okay.
Just because I think there are going to be more movies to choose from for me. Because I'm doing a quick Google of great surrogacy movies, and there are plenty out there. I have not.
Are there really?
I'm lying to you right now. I think there are about a dozen, and I have seen like 1 right now. So,
yeah, I can only think of 2 really. Yeah. I'm sure there are more, but
okay. So I'm less inclined to do that.
What about Marriage by Convenience? Yep. Do you think that that's a wide swath of stories that we could
Yes, I do.
Okay. Oh, well, we'll leave that in. So, do you like divorce films? I think divorce films is fine. Marriage by Convenience, divorce films, and Rekindling Old Flames.
Yes. Yep. Let's do that.
Okay.
That's a
so
good
we're
3.
dropping
We'll drop Chinatown.
Okay. How about films not set in China?
Films have nothing to do with the country of China, but everything to do with other stuff that's Chinese related.
No, it's just terrible. That's like every film. Right. Oh man.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll put that up in the Show Talk channel for everybody to get their votes in. And you have till next Friday, May 3rd. Not quite May the 4th. And get your votes in, and we'll put that together for next week. Otherwise, I think we're done.
Put a fork in it, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this fine Saturday matinee. It's a big box office weekend. Hope you, if you like these movies, hope you get out and get a chance to see it. And then what you should do is start over at the beginning. If you haven't subscribed to the Marvel Movie Minute, we have only 1 minute left to record. Andy, can you believe that?
That is nuts. And I will say, just as a complete side note here at the very end, it was really, really gratifying to have gone through Iron Man in such scrupulous detail to lead into Endgame. Like, I felt so connected to Tony. It was weird.
Yeah, I could not agree more. That it was that was absolutely. You know, there are all these lists of movies that you know, people say, oh, you should watch these 5 movies before you see Endgame. And for my money, the only one you really need to watch is Iron Man.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that, but
and you should watch it 1 minute at a time.
Well, you're right.
Anyway, thanks everybody. Catch you later.
See ya.